Since the COVID-19 pandemic started, there's been a lot of talk about what the new normal will look like. Given that we have no idea how long the situation will actually last and what the world will even look like when it's over, this all is pure speculation. Which is fine. I mean, we're all in lockdown. What better time to speculate? But one of the common themes is that work as we know it will change. A lot of that is driven by the fact that work has already changed in so many ways. I don't need to tell anyone that we're working from home at a scale never before imaginable, finding creative ways to stay connected, productive, and safe. Companies have started virtual water coolers and embraced things like collective messaging. We have companies like Microsoft, who have seen team meetings swell to hundreds of millions of participants, say they've effectively seen about 2 years of digital transformation in about 2 months. The question is, will all this remote work be the new normal? There's been a lot of indicators that companies are planning for remote work as a long-term investment. It was interesting to see at the start of the COVID-19 lockdowns, in the US at least, many tech companies were trying to gently roll out office closures, trying to keep some employees working from home while keeping offices open, at least in theory. But state mandates often forced organizations to move to full remote workforces. It's outside the scope of this video to talk about the heroic feats of IT that were needed to make all this possible. It's a testament to things like the modern public cloud that we saw some services like Slack and Teams have outages, but never really saw larger Azure, AWS, or GCP outages knocking out a bevy of dependent services and organizations. I mean, we thought we did a few weeks ago, but it turned out just to be a bad 13 hours for T-Mobile. As lockdowns have dragged on, we've seen more organizations committing to remote workforces. Companies like Twitter, Zillow, Shopify, and Facebook are working on making remote work a permanent part of their workforces, saying they'll reopen offices, sure, but don't intend to require employees to come back to those offices. This is backed up by a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers survey of CFOs, which saw that over half of respondents say they would make remote work a permanent option for roles that allow it once on-site work is feasible again. That same survey, when asking about if there's anything from #pandemic life that will make your company better in the long run, the number one response was work flexibility, with that response actually increasing from May to June. Sure, remote work is only part of work flexibility. Part of it is assuredly tied to annoyingly pinging employees at all hours, but it's definitely part of that category. The survey also showed concerns about remote work productivity being alleviated to a certain degree. In April, the survey found that over 40% of respondents were concerned about the effects of workplace productivity as a result of COVID-19 remote work. It was the number 3 response at the time. By June, it didn't even rank in the top 5. What's weird about all of this is that remote work is nothing new. It may feel like 2020 is perfectly timed to take advantage of key advances in technology to make it possible. After all, Zoom calls have become an iconic part of this work-from-home mass exodus. But it's not like video conferencing is in any way new. Heck, Skype is 16 years old, and we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the first commercially available video call. We can say that things like the public cloud or video calls or ubiquitous connectivity have made remote work possible, but given the ingenuity of humans in general, especially under pressure, I think it's fair to say that it's made it easier rather than possible. A recent piece in the New York Times looked at some recent retreats from telecommuting in the enterprise since the turn of the century. Companies like IBM, Yahoo, and Best Buy had embarked on ambitious plans to make telecommuting part of their corporate culture, only to have them reined in and eventually rolled back throughout the 2010s. IBM at one point had 40% of its workforce remote, something Facebook hopes to surpass by 2025. So why did all those efforts fail? Was it a lack of people, process, and/or technology? Listen, I'm not a productivity or a business consultant, but looking at the names involved, yeah, those were prominent companies, sure, but ones that were undergoing severe disruption at the time. This puts pressure on management to steady that ship and often introduces new management as part of that process. One of the best ways to make it seem like you're doing something, even if you kind of don't know what you're doing, is to change things up. And there's nothing that will spur going back to traditional business as normal than turbulent times. But I don't see any analysts out there looking back at all those efforts that say that the struggles of any of those companies had a direct result of a large remote workforce. For IBM, it was investing in a cognitive services business that could never scale the way they imagined or replace their mainframe business. For Yahoo, it was flailing its way to irrelevance with a sprawling and confusing lineup of sites, content, and ads. And for Best Buy, it was trying to exist as a retail chain in the age of Amazon. Two of those three still exist as companies, but I'm not sure if shifting back from remote work really impacted that. There will undoubtedly be many challenges organizations have to face as mass remote work becomes commonplace. Managers, for one thing, will have to become used to not physically seeing their employees at work. We're already seeing organizations resorting to spyware to still get that same sense of control. Reporting work for employees becomes much more important as well, both to earn the trust of managers long term and to keep themselves from being out of a job for perceived lack of value. Despite the fact that you're probably sick of Zoom calls right now, let's face it, we're still in the honeymoon phase for all of this. How do organizations and employees handle things like burnout, when work-life balance goes from shifting your physical presence to simply a state of mind? These are questions we'll learn the answers to as we continue through to whatever the new normal will hold. The organizations that are invested in learning the answers and optimizing for this remote work future are probably going to be the ones in the best position to get to that new normal first. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Checksum. We've got new episodes coming out every Monday, so why don't you subscribe to the Gestalt IT YouTube channel and give this video a like while you're at it. And let us know, have you been through a remote work rollback before? And do you see remote work being the new normal post-pandemic? Let us know in the comments. Can't wait to hear from you.